Okay, let's change gears here and talk about emergencies. So, here's a Cirrus flying along, and if you take a look at this, looks like, Peter, a little smoke coming out of the back there.
Yeah, a little engine trouble.
So let's look at an engine failure in flight scenario and maybe teach you a little bit of a different way that some of the airlines will handle emergencies. And the first thing we want to show you is what we call plane path people. So first of all, a lot of you learned aviate, navigate, communicate, right? I like plane path people more. So let's just walk you through this lovely cycle. So plane, you obviously deal with the airplane. Path, you deal with whether it's a VFR path, get yourself out of the mountains, turn away from the mountains, whether it's VFR or IFR, and then people. And what I like about this is when we talk about situational awareness, we always say the best definition of situational awareness is where you are now, where you want to be 5 minutes from now, and what resources are you going to use to get there. And in an emergency, you want to use all available resources. And so what I like about people is people during an emergency includes everybody on your flight deck, talking to your passengers. If you happen to be flying a charter flight as a business jet, or you're flying an airliner, you talk to the cabin crew. And then lastly, you talk to ATC. And I just really have fallen in love with teaching plane path people. Let's take you in the cockpit and give you an example.
When I first lose the engine, I'm going to deal with the airplane. The autopilot's going to come off. I'm going to pitch up for my best glide speed, which is 88 knots. For path, I'm going to look here on the multifunction display to my nearest airport. It tells me Palmdale, 268, 15 miles. And then I'll come down to the Garmin, and I go to the nearest chapter, nearest airport, direct enter, enter. And I take a look at that. Plane, path. Well, I can tell you right now, with a path of 15 miles, I may not make that. I don't like that. Now, if I'm in the left seat, I'm going to make a left 180-degree turn looking for an airport. Now, remember, I'm a flight instructor. Sometimes I find the right seat. If I'm in the right seat, I'll actually make a right turn. Let's make a left-hand turn to see if I can find myself an airport. Bingo. I've got sight of 2 airports, one here and one there that I could possibly make. And you know what? I got a big honking airport right out there at my 9 o'clock position. I'm going to aim for that. Being at 8,000 feet, I'm going to have no problem making that. So plane path, my path is clearly going to take me over there. And now people. I need to talk to my pilots inside the flight deck and tell them what I need from them, talk to the passengers maybe in the back seat, and finally, I need to communicate with ATC. Mayday, mayday, mayday. This is Cirrus 178 Alpha Sierra declaring an emergency, possible engine failure. Stand by for further. I'm not going to get into a conversation with the ATC right now. I've got too many things to do.
So there's a great example of plane path people. Now, let's look at what we call the emergency mnemonics. Air New Zealand likes to use SADI. Qantas uses GRADE. But the one that I really like, and us at Flying Like the Pros really like, is we love British Airways' TDODAR. So let's give you an example of TDODAR. Again, it's a cycle that you run. First off is time, diagnose, options, decision, assign, and then review. And when we talk about review will come back to plane path people. Let's take you on board and show you what it's like. First off, phase 1, time.
How much time do I have? Now, that's very applicable in the Cirrus, because remember, the Cirrus has the CAP system, the Cirrus airframe parachute system. So what I like to do is go over here to the MFD, look at my nearest airport, and find out what is the elevation. I can see it right there. It's 2,500 feet. So let's just say, add 2,000 feet to that. 4,500 feet becomes my hard deck. That means if I get to 4,500 feet and I'm not in position to land at an airport with, let's say, a 5,000-foot runway, I want that runway to be paved, I am going to pull the chute. So time. I now know how much time I have. So I get from 7,200 feet down to my hard deck of 4,500 feet.
The next phase we call phase 2 is DOTA, and that is diagnose the problem, what options do you have, make a decision, and assign tasks. Back to the flight deck we go.
The next piece, diagnose the problem. All right, so down here to fuel. All right, boost pump's on. I'm going to change the tank. The mixture comes up. I'll come on over here down here and use my alternate air. I'll cycle the magnetos. And then I'll run the emergency checklist to see what did I miss. Because remember, I always miss something. And I check off the checklist. When that's all done, what options do I have? Well, option number 1, I clearly, no problem, I'm going to make this airport that's right down here. Or the other option is I go for the CAPS handle up there. Next, I need to make a decision. So for right now, my decision's made. I've looked at the winds. I'm going to land at this airport. Next, assign tasks. I need to assign tasks to myself. Maybe I assign tasks to ATC. Cirrus 8 Alpha Sierra, we've got an engine failure. We've got an airport down here with an R on the runway, about a 5,000-foot runway. I'm going to go ahead and land there. We've got 4 souls on board, and we've got approximately 1 hour and 30 minutes of fuel. I'm showing me passing 6,700 feet. I want you to tell me when I pass 5,500 feet.
And as we look at phase 3 is review. When we talk about review, that is going back to plane, path, people.
And when I say review, I'm talking again about plane, make sure I'm maintaining 88 knots. 88 knots is my best glide speed. Plane, the path. Am I happy with the path as I come over the airport? Is the path VFR or IFR? It might be an IFR path. Well, let me tell you, if it's an IFR path, you're probably going to want to be seriously considering pulling that chute. Plane, path, and people. Again, have I talked to everybody in my flight deck? Have I told the passengers start to secure themselves for the landing? And people, have I talked back to ATC?
So that gives you a great example of using plane, path, and people, and then also tying in with that during an emergency, TDOTAR. Time, diagnose, options, make a decision, assign tasks, and review. So in closing here, what we simply want to say is, look, remember, if you sound like a pro, you will be treated like a pro.
And don't hesitate to declare an emergency.
And as I always like to say, don't be in a rush to screw it up.